Hi, today I'm going to make a very, what I call a quintessential Punjabi dish, Rajma, or kidney beans as you call it in English. Now, it's kind of, many people have this thing about it's very difficult to cook Rajma. So, I picked up this book, again, Yash's grandmother, Mrs. Vijay Mehra, who's written this book. I went through that, and I want to show you that it's not a difficult dish to cook. Very easy, and more importantly, it's a time-intensive dish. So if you have prepared well to cook the dish, it doesn't take much time, right? So let me just take you through the ingredients for Rajma. So here I've got 2.5 cups of the kidney beans, which is really Rajma. I've soaked it for 9 hours overnight. So it's time-intensive, but it doesn't matter. You just soak it and go to sleep. Now, if you're using I'm going to use a pressure cooker, but if you're going to use a pan, please use to make the Rajma, then you have to basically that's to boil it and soften it. I suggest you soak it for about 12 to 14 hours and then boil in a bottom heavy pan, right? So I'm going to pressure cook it. So that's the key ingredient. Now, again, these are the spices I'm going to use: turmeric, cumin seeds, Garam Masala. That's kind of the North Indian 5 spices, kind of ground together. Coriander powder, a little bit of chili powder, and of course Asofotedia, right? Those are the dry spices. I make my own ginger garlic paste at home. I don't like buying the packet stuff, so this is ginger garlic paste. Of course, onion is a must. 1.5 for the 2.5 cups of Rajma soaked overnight. I've got about 1.5 red onion chopped, and 1 tomato chopped. And I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do with this garlic, right? So let me just show you the first step of cooking. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pressure cooker and put the Rajma in, all of it. And because I've got 2.5 cups soaked, I'm going to use 5 cups of rice, right? So this measuring cup is 2.5. So I'm going to make it twice of this. So that's 1. So the ratio is always 2.5 to 3, right? And I'm going to add a little bit more. That goes in. Now remember, I've got these chopped garlic, right? They help in melting it, like mutton or anything else. This is again a twist that I have found. So I'm going to add a kind of coarsely chopped, and it also adds to the flavor, of course. Let me add a few bit more. So that goes in, and then I'm going to add salt, but the final salt test will be later. So there goes in the salt, and this is I'm going to stir it a little bit, cover it up, and I'm going to go for 5 whistles. If you're not using a pressure cooker, because it's not commonly available, if you're using a thick bottom pan, then boil it for about 30 minutes, but do keep looking at it now and then. 30 minutes in a medium heat. So I'm going to light the light the fire and pressure it for about 5 whistles. The first one will be at high, and the remaining 4 in medium heat. So that when this gets cooked, I'll come back and take you through the cooking process. Yep. Hi. So the Rajma is now done. The kidney beans. So I'm letting the pressure cooker cool down. You can actually do this in parallel if you want. So I've got my gas lit up. I'm going to put my heavy bottom. Now it's the tempering, as I call it, making the Rajma. So I've got about 4 tablespoons of melted butter. I like to pre-melt the butter before cooking, because otherwise it doesn't get evenly melted, and therefore it could burn. So I've got it's about 4 tablespoons of butter. I'm just going to let it heat up. Okay, now the butter is well heated, so I'm going to put 1.5 teaspoon of the cumin seeds. Let it to crackle a little bit, and I'm going to add a pinch of Asofotedia, which is hing, and then I'm going to add the ginger garlic paste because I want the ginger and garlic to cook well before I add the the onion. So I'm going to add the ginger garlic paste. Again, it's homemade. It's, I prefer doing it at home rather than buying the pre-packed from the market. So this is, I'm just going to let the ginger and garlic to kind of fry well. Right, so it is on high heat at this point in time. So that's looking good. At this stage, I'm going to take the smell. It's going to cook a little bit longer. So that's done. So I'm going to add the onion to it. Okay. Keep the flame high. And I'm going to saute the onion till it's kind of translucent. Okay, now the onion is cooked well, it's translucent. At this point in time, I'm going to add the condiments. So I'm going to put in 2 teaspoons of coriander powder. I've slowed down the heat as I'm adding this spices. So 2 spoons of coriander powder. Remember, I've already put in the cumin seeds. I'm going to put 1.5 of turmeric. I'm going to put the garam masala later, okay? And I'm going to put a little bit of salt, red chili powder. This is a traditional red chili, so I'm going to heat up, increase the heat, and saute the masala for about a minute or so that it's well soaked with the onion. Well, the spices have well soaked with the onion now. I'm going to add the tomato and stir it. And as the tomato kind of blends into the spices, I'm also going to add kind of a teaspoon of tomato puree or tomato paste. That kind of gives that tangy flavor, not to mention the color. So I'm going to stir this well now and make sure the tomato is well cooked before I do the last step, which is add the boiled rajma. And as you can see, it's a very easy dish to cook. Right? It's time intensive. You have to cook that, you have to soak that rajma. But once you get that done, it's not a difficult dish to make. All right, the tomato, onion, the whole thing now has been well done. At this stage, I'm going to go to my pressure cooker, which has been sitting there, so that kind of the heat would have been gone by now. And there you see the rajma already kind of softened. The whole idea of rajma is that it has to be really soft. If it's hard, then it's kind of, the texture is bad, the taste is bad. Therefore, the soaking and the boiling is so important. It should just, if you crunch it, it should just crunch in your hands. If I'll show you this, you just do this, and it should just sort of crunch out. So that's where you need the rajma to be after soaking for 9 to 12 hours, depending on the pressure cooker or pan, and then boil it like this. Now I'm going to add the rajma into the masala that I have made. That's done. We'll give it a stir. At this stage, I'm going to go for high flame and let it boil. And to do the final touches now, I'm going to let this boil. And I'm going to add the garam masala. The garam masala is typically, again, 5 spices, but it's more from the north. It has the cardamom, the cinnamon, etc. The 5 spices of the north and 5 spices of the east. East is what's called pachforan, and from the north is what you call garam masala. So at this stage, I'm going to let this boil for about 5 minutes. I'm going to go offline. I'm going to come back and show you the last step. Sorry, 5 minutes. I've kind of soaked some of the water out. At this stage, I will do my final salt test. So let me just see what the salt is like. Perfect, but I'll give a little bit more salt. That's about it. Stir it. And here is the twist. I'm not sure whether they do this or not, But I have realized that if you put a little bit of cream onto this, and this is kind of light cream, it gives a nice flavor to the rajma. Teaspoon of the cream. It's light cream, so it's safe. It's kind of no problem. You're gonna mix, thickens it, and gives a very creamy flavor to the rajma, right? So this is done. Now what I'm gonna do is put my timer to 10 minutes and cover it up on low flame and let it kind of cook for 10 minutes. And that's a very difficult dish to make, supposedly rajma. So I love that with basmati rice on a Sunday afternoon if it's winter. And to paraphrase Martin Yan, the Taiwanese cook, who's one of my favorite cook, he used to quote that if Yan can cook, so can you. So I'm paraphrasing that to say that if I can make rajma, so can you. Enjoy.